Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Next is haptic communication. Haptic communication is also known as touch communication. Like animals, we thrive on touch, smell, and comfort to build strong, lasting relationships. Right from a handshake to the intimacy we have with loved ones, everything keeps us feeling secure. In school, however, you must have learnt about good touch and bad touch. As you grow up, you also experience this learning and are able to identify which touch made you feel good and which touch you did not appreciate. There are a variety of ways in which this touch communication occurs. A small pat on the back from a teacher can make a student feel proud and motivated. A warm hug from a friend can make you feel loved and supported when you are sad. A firm handshake during an interview shows confidence and respect. But sometimes when someone touches you in a way that feels uncomfortable, it immediately creates fear and uneasiness. This is your body's way of telling you that the touch is not right. Touch can express emotions much faster than words. It can comfort, encourage, and strengthen human bonds when done with the right intention. That is why being aware of how we use touch and how others respond to it is very important in communication. Let us take a few examples of haptic or touch communication. The first one is handshake. When we meet people for the first time, as professionals, we generally give a confident handshake that transfers our confidence to that person. Through this handshake, the other person understands who is going to be leading the conversation and who is going to be the weak link. Therefore, it is so important to know what kind of handshake you give. You have now a task to shake hands with at least 3 or 4 of your friends and ask them how they felt. If they say okay, it means you still need to work on the transfer of confidence. If they say good, then you made them feel secure and there was a good transfer of confidence. And if your handshake was considered too tight or too strong, you might have to learn to lower your confidence or your anxiety. A handshake needs to be warm, comforting, and confident. Just enough to sound like a pleasant hello. Shake your hand, swing it once, and you have given the person a view of your knowledge and your personality. A good handshake also leaves a lasting impression, especially in interviews or formal meetings, where your touch becomes the first silent introduction before your words even begin. The next is a sideways hug. Have you met friends where you do not really go and give them a bear hug, but you very respectfully give them a sideways hug? This communicates that you are okay with this person coming from the personal space into your intimate space, but at the same time, you are just friends. This generally demonstrates warmth, trust, and comfort. It also shows clearly boundaries that you maintain with the person in your intimate space and the people in your personal space. I have personally had friends for 15 years to 20 years, and yet we only start our conversation with a sideways hug. This hug is respectful yet maintains a good level of informality. It tells the other person that you care, but you also value mutual comfort. Then comes the bear hug. Once in a while, we all want to feel this full bear hug where we are able to hold someone and feel secure and comfortable. But it is not a hug that we will give to everyone. We mostly give a bear hug to our family members, children, or someone we really love. The boundaries are thinner and they belong to our intimate space. There are no inhibitions, only transfer of love and confidence. I believe that this should be accessible only to a few people who you fully trust and love. A warm hug can lift a person's mood, reduce stress, and create an instant feeling of safety. But the same hug, if shared with the wrong person or at the wrong time, can send confusing signals. Hence, understanding when and with whom to use a bear hug is an important part of emotional intelligence. Then, the doctor's visit. To diagnose a patient's illness, sometimes a doctor might need to touch different parts of the body. But there is a clear professionalism in the intent of this haptic communication. It does not feel uncomfortable or unintentional. Permission is taken and the patient is clear as to why the doctor would check that part of the body. This communication is safe and only done for medical reasons. The reason it feels comfortable is because both people understand the purpose. The intent is professional and the environment is respectful. This shows that the intention behind the touch defines how it is perceived. What about the public space? Sometimes we have bumped into people, lend a hand, sit close to each other, or simply be squeezed up in a crowd. Yet all the haptic communication that occurs in these crowded places can be very clean and unintentional. However, in these public spaces, a lot of touch communication happens due to negative mindset that also wants to take advantage of a crowded space. You must be very aware of such touch and have the courage to voice your opinion or discomfort. Never allow anyone the liberty to take advantage of a situation and make you uncomfortable. It is not only your right, but also your responsibility to speak up when someone crosses a boundary. Being silent in such moments can encourage the person to behave wrongly again with you or someone else. Workplace. We may experience this happening at your college or even at your workplace. And you must be smart enough to identify which haptic communication makes you comfortable and which makes you uncomfortable. When you put up with negative touch communication, even for the first time, you encourage a person to repeat their bad behavior. The best way to combat bad touch is to be loud and vocal about your discomfort. Most people with bad behavior are afraid of those who speak up against them. Confidence and clarity in your body language shows that you are not someone who can be easily taken advantage of. The way you carry yourself, the way you look at people, and the way you respond to uncomfortable behavior sends a strong signal that defines your boundaries. These are only a few examples of haptic communication. There are so many forms of touch communication, like a kiss on the forehead, hand holding, patting on the shoulder, or a tap on the head. All these give a sense of encouragement and motivation. Apart from these, there could be a lot of negative touch communication such as the slap or punch, a push, a pinch, and many other more subtle, more silent, uncomfortable touches which make another feel threatened, fearful, or angry. Most of the negative touch that happens because of poor upbringing and immaturity. The best way to discourage this is to build a personality that is confident and straightforward. Setting clear boundaries, verbally and non verbally, helps people understand that you will tolerate and what you will not tolerate at all. Example: there was a group of 4 friends sitting on the college staircase, 2 girls and 2 boys. I happened to be on a call just a few meters away from them. I watched as they giggled and had fun, but here is what I observed. One of the girls kept pushing, playfully beating, pinching, and holding the hands of the boys, while they simply did their best not to reciprocate the behavior. I have one clear rule that I feel if you develop within yourself, you will always carry a respectful personality and posture that will only attract more respect in return. That rule is, if you do not want someone to touch you, you do not touch either. When you playfully push, pinch, and hold, you are unintentionally and non verbally communicating that you are okay with haptic communication with the other person. This can quickly be misread, and when reciprocated, it will be challenging to handle. The rule for touch communication do not only exist for boys. It is gender neutral, and both genders need to maintain clear boundaries to attract each other's respect. Another example can be seen in team celebrations. Imagine a group of employees celebrating a successful project. Some may choose to shake hands or pat each other on the shoulder, which is professional and respectful ways of showing happiness. But if someone suddenly gives an unwanted hug or touches a colleague in an unfamiliar way, the whole moment can turn awkward. What started as a celebration can suddenly make someone feel uncomfortable. This again proves that the meaning of touch depends not only on intention but also on timing, relationship, and comfort level. Respecting personal space and understanding others' comfort is what keeps touch communication healthy and positive. When used correctly, haptic communication can be one of the most powerful forms of emotional connection. It can comfort, reassure, celebrate, and even heal. But when misused, it can damage trust and respect in seconds. So be aware of how you use touch, when you use it, and with whom you use it. The best form of haptic communication is one that makes both people feel safe, respected, and valued. Let us explore another element of body language: gestures. There are a variety of actions we make when we like something, do not like something, feel shocked or confused, or are just bored and lazy. Just like haptic communication, gestures also are of various varieties, like facial expressions. WhatsApp and many other applications today use a line of smiley faces to demonstrate feelings. And these are so popular that sometimes you do not even use words at all. Remember that one smiley that you sent when you actually had to say thank you or sorry or please? Over the years, these smiley faces have become more refined and fun to use on chats. But we must remember that they all come from the actual facial expressions that are seen on human faces. The face is a banquet of expressions. Sometimes there is no need for words, but only an expression that can communicate so many of your feelings, just like a smiley face on chat messages. When we teach people how to speak publicly and clear an interview or simply carry a confident personality, we teach them to carry a warm smile, maintain eye contact, and hold a facial expression that will make others feel warm and welcomed. Perhaps if you have not given too much attention to your facial expressions and how you come across, you have not truly tapped into the potential of nonverbal communication. Your face can show curiosity, confidence, doubt, anger, or happiness even without you realizing it. This is why people say your face speaks before your words. If you want to build trust or leave a good impression, a genuine smile is your most powerful tool. But the smile must come from warmth, not from formality. People can easily sense the difference between a real smile and a forced one. For example, imagine attending a meeting where someone greets you with a cold expression and tight lips. You will instantly feel that they are uninterested or unfriendly. But if the same person smiles warmly, you would feel warm and open to the conversation. Such is the power of facial expressions. The next is emblems. Emblems is also known as hand gestures, or another popular way in which people communicate. Have you ever sent a message to somebody and they just sent you a thumbs up back? How did that make you feel? Emblems have also been created by watching actual human hand gestures. A thumbs up for when you agree with someone or are trying to wish luck to someone, crossed fingers when you are hoping for something, a fist bump or a high five when you are agreeing with someone, a hand gesture when you are trying to ask someone to stop, and so many more good and not so good gestures that we can make with our hands alone. While emblems may seem to be a small part of communication skills, these small bits are what creates big impact. I have personally experienced road fights only because someone used the wrong hand gesture. And I am sure you know what I mean. Gestures can unite or divide people instantly. They can express friendliness or disrespect without a single word spoken. So be aware of your hand gestures, especially in multicultural or professional settings. It is extremely important. Imagine you are traveling abroad. In a country, a thumbs up is a positive sign, but in another, it could be taken as an insult. This shows that emblems are not universal. What seems normal to you might be rude to someone else. That is why it is always good to observe others first before using gestures that may not even mean the same thing everywhere. Hand movements. Your hands have the function of helping you to get through your day. However, your hands also form an important part of communication when you are trying to express yourself. You make a variety of gestures with your hands when you talk with people. Having an open arm approach when entering conversations help people understand that you are approachable, open to corrections, and willing to listen. On the other hand, having a closed arm approach where you tightly hold yourself with your arms whenever you interact with people would probably get them to think that you are not interested, bored, or not agreeing to what they are saying. I do know sometimes we unconsciously fold our hands together only because it is uncomfortable. But how the other person translates this posture is what makes an interaction more meaningful. You must have also seen this posture, which is very common when people are having a long conversation or carrying a way too much open body approach. Holding hands over the head while swinging in your chair is not considered to be an appropriate body language when in conversation. It makes the other feel like you need to stretch because you are tired or bored with the interaction. Way too much open posture also demonstrates overconfidence, which could be read as arrogance. When delivering a session, I am very conscious to observe how the person is holding their body approach. Do they have an open hand approach while talking to me, or do they have a closed hand approach? This helps me determine how much time I must invest into that person. If they give me an open hand approach, it clearly means that they are receiving my opinion, they are respecting me, and they are willing to have this conversation. But if they have a closed body or a closed hand approach, it clearly means that there is only a one-sided transfer of information happening, and there is a disconnect with the listener. There is no point then for me to go on having communication with this person. Even when public speaking, if most of your audience have closed their hands while listening to you, it means you need to change your tempo, add a joke, or change the subject altogether. In a meeting, when your hands are below the table, it means you show less confidence and nervousness. And if they are on the table, they show confidence and clarity as they occupy more space. Hand gestures are also used to signal shapes, sizes, and numbers. When I say we were two people, but the room was so big, I have indicated two and big with my hands to give you both an auditory, which helps you hear what I said, and a visual, which helps you see what I said. This means I have engaged both your sensory organs. Now the information that I give you will be retained for a longer period of time. Similarly, we make various hand gestures to show right and left, up and down, and many other such actions that capture the hearing and viewing ability of a listener. In public speaking, we have a rule that the more sensory organs we can engage in a person, the more impactful the speech or presentation becomes. Let me share another example. During a workshop, I noticed a participant explaining an idea using only words. His voice was clear, but his hands stayed still. The group seemed uninterested. After observing him for a while, I suggested that he use his hands to show the size of the problem and the direction of his solution. The next time he presented, he naturally started using gestures to show increase or decrease, movement and results. Suddenly, the same group leaned forward and paid attention. This small change made his communication come alive. The audience could now see his words. That is the power of gesture. They turn plain communication into a full experience. Gestures are more powerful because they connect the speaker's body with the listener's emotions. When you use your hands or face expressively, your audience can sense your honesty and passion. But when gestures are too stiff or exaggerated, they can send the wrong messages. For example, constantly pointing at someone while speaking can make them feel accused. On the other hand, keeping your palms slightly open while explaining something signals honesty and openness. Every small movement has meaning. In conversations, gesture adds energy. In presentations, they add clarity. And in relationships, they add warmth. The goal is not to copy someone's gesture, but to develop awareness of your own. Once you become aware of how your body moves, you can control your gestures to support your words, not distract from them. So, the next time you speak to someone or stand in front of a group, pay attention to what your hands are doing, how your face is reacting, and what message your body is sending even before you speak. When your gestures, expressions, and words all work together, your communication becomes memorable and impactful. I am sure by now you have got a little more explanation. Body language plays a very vital role when you are communicating and interacting with the world around you. The next is eye contact. Sometimes this could be the most nerve-wracking body language that you have to practice, especially if you are doing public speaking or an interview. However, the eyes are the window to a person's thought process and emotions. If you do not look into them, there is a lot about that person you might never get to know. The audience tends to build a lot more trust in a speaker who maintains eye contact as against speakers who don't even look at them. In relationships, commitment, security, and trust are judged based eye contact that you give to your loved ones. When you are having a conversation with someone and do not look at them, they feel like they are not heard, even though hearing is the function of the ears and not the eyes. However, maintaining a good level of eye contact is not easy for everyone. It requires a person to be confident, and confidence comes from a variety of reasons. Years of experience, knowledge base, age, and many such elements impact confidence. I still remember my first public speaking event where I was focused so much on my content that I mostly looked at the ground or the ceiling while delivering my training. It took me some time to understand that I needed to connect with the audience, and for that, I would have to get comfortable with eye contact. So, if I could do it, I am sure you can do it too. The question remains, how do we fake up eye contact when we are not yet confident? There are a few simple ways I have found that works. For example, looking at the center of both eyebrows and making your gaze slowly from one person to another while speaking in a group. You can also gently zigzag your eye contact through the audience when delivering a speech. This way, you may not make direct contact with any person, but you are at least giving everyone a feeling that you are aware of them and that they are included. In the start of the session, we spoke about various ways in which body language is used for different purposes. During investigations especially, the dilation of the pupil tells the investigator if the person is lying or telling the truth. As it is said, you may lie, but your eyes never do. They communicate happiness, sadness, interest, disinterest, excitement, and even tiredness. The eyes are an important organ of the body and one of the most active sensory organs. Making sure you take good care of your eyes is important so that they keep communicating in a healthy way to every person you meet. Maintaining too direct an eye contact or staring right at the person might make them feel threatened or uncomfortable. Not maintaining the right level of eye contact makes the other person feel like you are not paying attention. The best way to give eye contact is to keep it in moderation. And when you look elsewhere, replace it with a nod. This helps the other person feel comfortable and secure. When you are talking, it is nice to use a little bit of eye contact, not only to communicate but also to hold attention. You can use your hands to demonstrate what you are saying. This makes it easier for other people to maintain eye contact with you because they have more things to focus on: your eyes, your hands, and what you are showing to them. It becomes a smooth exchange where the conversation feels lively and comfortable. Like any other skill, maintaining eye contact gets better with practice. One simple exercise is to stand in front of the mirror and talk to yourself. Look into your own eyes as you speak for a minute, then slowly increase it to 2 or 3 minutes. This small practice builds confidence and self-esteem. You can also record a short video of yourself speaking and watch where your eyes move most often. Are you looking too far away or always downward? Awareness is the first step to improvement. When I started my corporate training team, I met a young professional who had great ideas but never looked up when speaking. He would speak to his notebook, trying to remember every word. The more he avoided looking at people, the more his audience disconnected. I gave him one small task: to look at just 3 people in the room during his next talk and maintain brief eye contact with each. In the next session, he came back smiling. He said the audience responded better and he felt heard for the first time. It was not because his words had changed, but because his eyes had started speaking too. This shows how powerful eye contact can be in creating connections. It bridges the gap between people faster than any amount of words can. When you meet people's eyes, you are telling them, "I see you, I am listening, and I care." That simple act can build trust almost instantly. Another time during a classroom session, I noticed a student who was always quiet. She would listen carefully but never spoke up. When I finally asked her a question, she looked down to avoid my eyes completely. After class, I asked if she was shy or uncomfortable. She said, "I'm scared I might say something wrong." I smiled and said, "You already said something right through your eyes. I can see you are interested." From that day, she started making small efforts to look up when answering. Within a few weeks, she became one of the most active students. All it took was building comfort with eye contact. Eye contact can communicate love and anger both in the same intensity. I still remember my mother giving me that death stare when I would do something wrong. That one look would make me question my behavior immediately without her saying a word. That is the strength of eye contact. It can express emotions, authority, disappointment, or warmth, all without a sound. While eye contact is powerful, it must also be respectful. For example, in professional settings, hold eye contact for 2 or 3 seconds before looking away. In casual conversations, maintain soft, natural contact with breaks to show you are relaxed. In close relationships, Longer eye contact shows affection and presence. The key is to balance connection with comfort. Also remember, your eyes are not just for others to read. They are also for you to express authenticity. When your eyes match your feelings, people believe your words. When they don't, even the best speech sounds empty. So, next time you speak, meet the eyes of your listener gently. Let your eyes smile before your lips do. Let your gaze say, I am here and I mean what I say. That is how great communicators connect, not just through voice, but through their eyes. The next is posture. Now let's look at postures, which is yet another very important aspect of body language. The way you sit, stand, and walk creates an impression about you and your personality. When you enter a room, within about 30 seconds, people will make a judgment about who you are, where you're from, and how important you really are. You may say that you do not care about what people think, but I believe when all your outcomes and returns are based on how other people think about you, then you must pay attention to set a good example and create an image that works in your benefit. And for that, you have to work on your posture. Then why not? Sitting posture. When I'm talking about sitting posture, I'm talking about a conscious awareness of not just how you look, but also what wrong sitting posture can actually do to your body. Various researchers today have stated that sloppy and drooping body postures while sitting can impact the strength and function of your back over a period of years. This posture communicates to people your disinterest or tiredness, making you seem unapproachable. Because of this, they might lose interest in communicating with you. You might hold this posture only because you feel uncomfortable, but it speaks volumes about your level of confidence and your awareness of image. You might hold this posture only because you feel comfortable, but it speaks volumes about your level of confidence and your awareness of image. What about this posture of sitting that demonstrates confidence, but perhaps a little too much of it? When communicating with one person who has crossed legs and arms, you know you are speaking to someone who is showing confidence, not to make you feel comfortable, but to judge you. On the other hand, someone who sits with crossed legs but open arms does not seem too intimidating. This posture mostly is seen in people of high positions or those who hold dominance within a conversation. The correct posture of sitting includes keeping your back straight and against the backrest, keeping your feet together and flat, and using your arms to express what you want to say. When having a conversation, it is always recommended that you sit facing your audience directly so that all distractions are cut off and your full attention is on the conversation. What do you think about this posture of sitting? That is very common among students within their own culture. In an informal environment around family and friends, this does not really matter so much. But in a formal environment where you know that you are being observed by people who could potentially bring you opportunities, this posture may be considered as loose and immature. While sitting for a long period of time, it is natural for you to slump in your chair. But that is when moving your body or standing up could refresh the energy you need to sit back upright. Developing awareness of how you sit is not only about looking good, but also about preserving your health, focus, and presence. I have mentioned this in this video before, but I will repeat it here again because I want you to see it. There is a YouTube video by renowned American psychologist Amy Cuddy where she speaks about how you changing your body language can change the functions of your hormones in your brain. This helps you take charge of your confidence and creates a more powerful picture for the world. Towards the end of the session, I will help you understand what power posture is about. Let's see walking posture. I attended a fashion show where contestants walked a ramp in a typical style that they had been trained on. It made me think, why is walking such an important movement for people in fashion? When I read more about it, it became clear that how you walk radiates the confidence and trust that another person might feel in you. For example, I told you earlier I enjoy watching thriller and suspense stories. In yet another video, which was a snippet of a CCTV footage, the investigators were trying to find a suspect in the crowd. They were able to track the person only by the way he walked around. His slow pace, his constant glances around, walking a little forward, looking back again, all of this seemed highly suspicious to the investigators. The summary key was that the walk gave away who they were looking for. Once during a corporate training, I asked participants to walk from one side of the room to another as if they were going for an interview. Some walked fast, some dragged their feet, and a few walked too casually. Then I asked them to do it again, this time with their chin slightly up, shoulders open, and a steady pace. Everyone agreed. They felt more alert and confident the second time. Even their colleagues said, "You look more professional now." This shows how a small change in walking posture can completely transform how others see you and how you feel about yourself. I'm not speaking about medical conditions around walking, but what we are referring to in this module is the pace and grace with which you carry yourself when you move. If you walk with your head down and back stooping and feet dragging, it tells people that you are either bored or anxious. However, when you open your shoulders, walk with a straight back and keep your chin up, you demonstrate a confident posture that never fails to get the attention of those around you. Have you ever noticed a person who walks into the room and everyone stops talking just to get a glimpse of them? And then there are others who come and go without anyone noticing. The grace with which you walk tells a lot about how aware you are of yourself, your surrounding, and the people around you. Needless to say, your footwear also plays an important role in how comfortable and graceful you appear when you walk. A fast-paced walk tells people that you are in a hurry, while a slow-paced walk tells others that you have all the time in the world. A balanced, calm, and steady walk shows confidence and awareness. Then comes standing posture. What does your standing posture say about you? If you are standing in a line for too long, it is natural that you will slouch or lean on anything that can give you support. This happens because of tiredness. If you want people to believe that you are tired, then that is fine. But if you want people to believe that you are confident, ready, clear, and have a good self-esteem, then it is recommended that even while standing, you hold your back straight and avoid leaning or slouching. A confident standing posture includes your feet placed firmly on the ground, your weight evenly distributed, and your head straight. When you stand like this, you come across as calm and dependable. It shows that you are sure of yourself and in control. In contrast, constantly shifting your weight from one to another or tapping your feet gives an impression that you are impatient or distracted. Posture is more about habits that is formed when you do not pay attention to your visibility when you sit, stand, or walk. All of us are so busy in life that sometimes we miss out on the small cues that we give to people, which in turn constantly creates our credibility. A good way to maintain healthy posture habits is to start tracking your posture at least 3 times a day. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, how am I sitting right now? How am I standing? How am I walking? When your mind becomes alert to poor posture, it automatically starts correcting itself. Over a period of time, you might just discover that you sit more gracefully, you walk more confidently, and you stand with more conviction. Your posture is your silent introduction to the world. Before you speak a word, it tells others whether you are tired, confident, or open to connection. So, the next time you walk into a room, remember that your body is already speaking. Let it say something strong, graceful, and true about who you are. Now, power posture. Power posture is referred to the power and confidence that you show through your body language. People read this power and confidence and understand how they must adapt in their interaction with you. This power can be positive as well as negative. All through this session, all the suggested changes in body language have been delivered with the intent of creating a positive power posture. Stand straight with your shoulders open, walk confidently with your chin up, sitting without slipping, and giving a firm, confident handshake. All of this demonstrates a confident power within yourself, which speaks a lot about your self-esteem. Confident people attract better opportunities and are in a better position to fulfill those opportunities to their best. People that lack power in their posture and body language teach others how to treat them and may always be in a more submissive or timid position in life. Whenever your posture is weak or closed, people assume that you are unsure, shy, or even fearful. But when your posture is open, steady, people automatically sense that you are ready, alert, and capable. We have also established that your body language has an impact on the way you yourself feel. If you have to focus only on one thing, it must be this. You should inculcate powerful body language in order to always feel powerful and ready to face challenges. When you stand tall and confident, you are not only showing the world your strength, but you're also reminding yourself that you are capable. Opening up your body and taking a deep breath before you walk on stage, making sure you walk into the room with grace and confidence when you are at an interview, or maintaining eye contact and a positive facial expression when you are in a conversation, all of these makes you feel good about yourself. And when you receive positive responses from the outside world, it seals your inbuilt confidence even more. I once trained a group of students for a campus interview. One of them, a very bright student, would always sit with his shoulders bent and his hands folded. Even though his answers were excellent, his posture made him look unsure and nervous. I asked him to try a small exercise before his next interview. He stood straight, opened his shoulders, and took 3 deep breaths before entering the room. The result was surprising. He later said, "I did not change my answer, but people looked at me differently. I felt calm and confident." That is the power of body posture. Another example, I often share this about a manager who would always slump in his chair during meetings. His team assumed he was tired and uninterested. When he corrected his sitting posture and began standing up while speaking, his team said he looked more energetic and inspiring. The change was not in his words, but was in his posture. This shows how a small physical change can bring a big emotional shift. Your body is constantly sending messages to the world and to your own mind. When it speaks confidence, your mind begins to believe it. This belief then shows up in the way you talk, make decisions, and handle situations. So remember, power posture is not about showing superiority or control. It is about standing, sitting, and walking in a way that makes you feel balanced, confident, and self-assured. When you practice this daily, you build inner strength that no one can take away. When your body says something while your words are saying something else, this gives away mixed signals that can be misinterpreted in different ways depending on who is listening to you. The interpretation also changes from the person listening to the person watching you. All of this somehow is building your credibility. If you say, "I am fine," but you cross your arms and your facial expressions are sad or angry, it clearly means that you are not fine. The intent of this module is to help you build alignment between what you say and how you show that through your body language. Body language is mostly voluntary, but a lot of it is also involuntary. It's the body's own way of communicating what it feels and does not feel. The idea is to control as much of the voluntary movements that you can in order to create a good, lasting image to help you attract the right opportunities. Body language also changes from one country to another. Like, for example, this hand gesture in India might mean it's good, but in Japan, it means money. In France, it means you are a big zero. In Brazil, it is considered to be a bad word. The thumbs up gesture is mostly considered to be a good gesture, but in some parts of West Africa, it is considered to be an offensive one. India and most Western countries, we might handshake to say hello, but in some of the Asian countries like China and Japan, taking a bow is a gesture for greeting. In India, we have Namaste, that is very popular, while in other countries, a handshake is more popular. As you expand your horizon to build your career, you must be aware that you could be working with people of various different cultures. Reading more on the subject and understanding this science of body language all throughout the world will help you with your interaction with people all across cultures and countries.